Hello and welcome to Once a Month. My name is David. I work as a sommelier in Stockholm, and today I'm joined with Jean Dietrich, as the founder of Achillee and Pepin, and also works as a winemaker down in Alsace. So today we're going to speak to him a little bit more about the wines and the location as well. So welcome, Jean.
Thank you. Thank you for welcoming. I'm really happy to be here.
Nice to have you here. So can you talk to us a little bit about why Alsace and what makes Alsace great for winemaking?
So Alsace is a beautiful a playground because there are many terroirs in such a small place, and also we are really lucky about the weather. It's actually, even if it doesn't look so, it's pretty dry, which is really helpful to grow organically and biodynamically because there is less risk about disease because they only develop themselves in wet conditions, and because we are surrounded by mountains, it allows us to work easily without many troubles. And it's also magic because we have in a short space many different terroirs, and it's really interesting to see how the different grape variety we use are behaving according to those terroirs. So, and also because I have my family vineyards here, and so it's much more practical than starting from zero. My dad started actually my brother and I are the 14th generation about vine growing, and they used to sell grapes to big cooperatives. But because my brother and I came back to the family estate, we started to build our own place, and that was the occasion to manage the whole process and start from the plantation to the vineyards to the presentation of the bottles in front of a camera. So it's really cool.
Nice. That sounds really good, and I love to hear about your family history as well. Both working, I mean, both brothers working now, and then the 14th generation. That's quite impressive. But you also mentioned some bio and organic. Have
Yeah.
you always been growing that as a family, or is it something that you and your brother have started with now?
My father started about more than 20 years ago. So in 1999, he started to grow organically, and we quickly turned into biodynamic in 2003. So much earlier than our first uh, wines, because we only started in 2016. Um, we have always eaten and been wearing some clothes and building houses in that way. So it would be a shame not to produce what we do in our current life by this way. And also, we did several blind tastings of wines, and for I don't know for which reasons, or no, I'm guessing, but with those blind tastings, every time the first rated wines were coming from organic farming and moreover biodynamic farming. So it was a good reason to go that way. And once you see the answer from the nature, which is really quick, you cannot come back to something conventional. So I'm really glad he did that earlier. And with those 20 years of production by this way, every year you can feel how the nature answers, and especially with those last vintages, we got many climate issues. There were some drought, some frost, and everything, and you can see that the vineyards behave much better on those conditions because the soils are alive, and it makes something more strong to face those issues.
Okay. So you talk about a lot about how the nature responds and how maybe then the terroir has shifted from back in the days to how it is now. But how would you say that the wines are represented if you think have the mindset of either terroir versus winemaking, or do you think there's a balance between terroir and winemaking?
It's like raising children. You give them the best conditions, and then you let them do their own life. So you try not to give too much inputs, and so they can decide in their own consciousness what they want to do. And I think that's my way of thinking about winemaking. So most of the process is happening outside in the vineyards, and once we get really healthy and nice grapes, then they can do their own life. We are just here to make sure everything goes right, but our aim is not to be too pushy about the wines and to let them do their own life. So I think winemaking, of course, everyone will do something a bit different, and everything happens in those details. But our target is not to put too much of our own personality into the wines, and to let the terroir explain themselves. That's really important for us. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really beautiful to look at the wine and the wines as your children and just let them live their life and evolve into what later becomes a very nice product in the glasses for us to drink. But do you have anything that like inspires you when it comes to your philosophy regarding the wines? Do you have a person or another winemaker, or is just like the philosophy in itself of the more natural style of wine that inspires you?
I've worked at some places before I came back. That's why I started to work for ourselves really late. I've traveled a bit. I've studied in Switzerland, and then I used to travel to do some vintages overseas and in France. And many people were really inspiring. Actually, all of the people I met in the wine business were always really inspiring. But I would say that my very first nature wine experience was in New Zealand with Clive Dougal. He was the winemaker of Cerezin, which was one of the biggest nature and biodynamic estate in New Zealand, and that was really amazing. You could see that without it was a lot of attention and a lot of patience, and but with no additions, no inputs, nothing in, you could do marvelous wines, and that was the big start. And then we built the winery with another marvelous winemaker who is called Jean-Paul Schmidt. So we share the same roof, and in the winery we have separate vineyards, separate wines and everything, but he's always on the side to make sure I'm happy with what I'm doing. And so we are really taking care of each other. Sometimes I bring him some fresh experiences from overseas and my previous experiences, and he is more the one who takes care and makes sure I'm not going on a wrong way, and so it's really complementary as a relationship. And in Switzerland, it was also a nice start because I worked at La Colombe by Raymond Paco with some Chasselas, which is the main grape variety in Switzerland. And he showed me with a really shy grape variety, something really quiet and almost silent, that you could do marvelous terroir wines just if you let them express with nice maturities and not being too touchy with the wine process, letting them doing their own life. So I guess those are my first inspirations. And then it's really cool because in the region in Alsace there is a nice dynamic about the production and the wine processes, and so we exchange a lot. We have many meetings. We meet a lot of people that gives us some fresh news about how to produce and how to do our own biodynamic preparations. And so now there is a big movement starting, and of course all the people we work with that are always giving some good advices and also telling us what they like and what they don't. And so it's a good way to learn about our own production and trying to do better every time.
So it's also again really beautiful to hear about the collaborations between winemakers, even though it's either in Alsace or down in New Zealand. The distance doesn't really matter because the philosophy is the same and it travels so well throughout the whole world, basically. And it's also nice here that you have someone rooting for you, helping you at home as well, because I know there's a lot of work going into making the wines. Some people might just think it's the one name on the bottle, but there's more people behind it than that. And I think we have behind me, we have some of your uh, both family and workers.
Exactly.
So this is a picture from one of your looks like spring feasts, or is it more later in the summer, or?
Yeah, actually, it's a meal during the harvest. So it's during the beginning of the fall, at the end of the summer, and
Mhm.
it's in the Schieferberg, which is one of our very nice terroir. So it's the furthest from the winery, but it was really important for us to get some vines there because the soil is really interesting. It's on slates. So Schieferberg is the Alsatian name for slate hill, and it's really steep. So it's really hard to work there if you don't catch something to stand up. You will probably fail. But all those efforts bring something really interesting to the wines because this is one of our more expressive terroir. Slates bring a lot of minerality and salinity to the wines. They always take a long time to be ready, those wines, in the tanks or in the wood tanks and then in the bottle. But once they are ready, they can last forever, and even in your mouth while you are tasting it, it's lasting for a very long time. So it deserves the efforts.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to try it now. I think it was 2 3 weeks ago, and it was fantastic. You could really feel the both the terroir, but also the minerality of it. The strength and the structure in the wine was mind blowing. I think we tried. I think it was 2018,
Yeah, right.
but you feel that it could last for a couple of decades more and still be perfect, evolved.
Thank you. So we try to keep some wines heavy vintage on the side, and we will probably try them in 10 years to see how they behave. And that's why one of the reasons why we enjoy working there, because it's a very long time to be ready, but also it's written for a long time as well. So it make us happy.
Oh, that's great. So I switched background for me. So now we were still up in the hills, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so those hills are the ones I was talking before about. Those are the Vosges, which is a really small mountain chain in our region, and that protects us from bad weather. So all the clouds loaded with rainwater are stopped by those hills, and that makes our climate pretty dry, which is really helpful for organic farming and biodynamic farming. and the geology of those mountains, those hills, are in a short distance really different, and so this is really amazing and interesting to understand those different terroirs.
Yeah, and talking about different terroir, now both of you, you and I have snow-covered vines behind us, but you have some vineyards that are also down in the valley as well, right?
Yeah, right. So the picture on your back is on the plain of Scherwiller, so the town where we have the winery, and it's because if because it's in the plain, it's a mix of different geology. So, but what is interesting about this place is that the granulometry, so the size of the elements, is really big, and so it makes like sandy, stony soils that makes the wines easily dry, and it's also easier to manage to manage working with some tractors. Sometimes we don't have any choice, so we have to work with tractors, and so the impact of the weight of the tractor is less damageable for the soils, and the type of wines you can produce on those type of soils are always dry and sharp, which is the wine we like to taste with my brother and my family and all the team.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much for letting us have a little bit more background story to the background pictures. But I think maybe we should try and start tasting the wines.
Yeah,
So
that would be a
start off
pleasure.
with it's hard to see, but I'll hold it in front of me, so maybe it will be noticeable. The Pepin Blanc.
Perfect. That's the one I have as well on my side. So cool.
Great. So this is a blend of 3 grapes, right?
Exactly. So it's a blend of mostly Riesling and then a bit of Auxerrois and a bit of Sylvaner, which are 3 really famous white grape varieties in our region. And so Pepin arrived in our life this year, at the beginning of this year, or we thought about it for a long time ago, but we were quickly running out of wine with Achillee, and because you have many small cuvées, and so we wanted to be still busy. We hate to wait on the side, so we started to do that. And so many of our friends are producing marvelous wines, but we have a nice commercial team at Achillee, and they do an amazing job, and they wanted to keep busy, to stay busy, and so that's why we created Pepin. So it's only coming from friends that are organically or biodynamically farming, and it's really easy to understand the process because there are only 2 rules: no inputs, no addition of anything, and no filtration with those organic or biodynamic grapes. So it's the easiest process you can imagine, and so our mission, our duty is to find those good wines and to talk about them. Yeah. So Pepin Blanc, because it's also small estates that are producing those wines. It's only small cuvée, so they can change, but the spirit is always going to be the same. So for the Pepin Blanc, we wanted to have something fresh that can go in many situations, which is always dry. And that's basically it, which is a simple way to present the wine. But you can feel with those grape varieties, with Auxerrois and Sylvaner, that are quite aromatic, that even if you get the structure of the Riesling, you also add all those flavors coming from those aromatic terroirs. So it's a balance between the structure and the different compounds, aromatic compounds coming from the other grape varieties.
So you can really feel that you have all these 3 different aromatic grapes. You feel it has a lot of like zing in the both in the acidity to it, but also it has this quite nice, almost bittery, citrusy vibe, and also with some hints of a little bit more depth to the flavor. I would say it feels maybe more of a lemon that you've roasted for a little while, so you get that like warmer, more sugary juice. Even though it's completely dry, you get that like rich flavor of
Right.
lemons and other more citrus fruits.
That's true. That's also why it's interesting, because we work with all those small producers. They can really select the proper date to harvest, and so you can get the best maturity to get something ripe enough. but not overripe, otherwise it would make something sweet. So they can really choose the proper date to harvest, and we also say our opinion about the day of harvesting, and so it's always a collaboration during all year long to produce those wines, and that maturity brings those flavors of ripe fruits with still something completely dry.
It's a really beautiful wine, and I think that the first time I tried it, I was really blown away because you never know what you're gonna expect. But when it comes from also, you know that you have growers that have grown these wines and the grapes, and that are so passionate and make a really good product themselves. But then when you put it together with another two people that makes some other great wines, it's a complete marriage between two great things, I would say, and it really comes across in the glass.
Cool. I'm glad you enjoyed that much. Thank you.
So let's try the orange one, the skin contact one.
So that's a completely other label. So again, the labels are made in collaboration with two people. There is an illustrator who is called Michel Tolmer, and our graphist, who is the same for Achillee, who is called Joachim Werner. And the work together is always, when they work together, it's always something really interesting to do. So we are really happy we found this collaboration, and it makes them fun and easy to understand, because each time you will see another label, it's another style of wine. So even if the producer change, if you see the same label, you will understand that it's basically the same style and always the same spirit. So with this orange wine, we are on a blend between Gewürztraminer and Auxerrois. So Gewürztraminer brings the tannins, brings the structure, brings the force as well, the strength of the wine, and the Auxerrois brings something more floral, more easy drinking, and more fresh. So both together, we thought it was a good mix. So this is 2 weeks maceration, all bunches, and then the grapes that were in the tank were pressed, and everything was blended, and it has been aged on the lees without addition, and then the gentlest bottling as well, to be gentle with the wine itself.
This one also has that, which I think is especially in more orange wine or amber wine, depending on how you want to choose it. That small like bitterness in the finish. That's so it just dries out your mouth, but it's leaving you wanting more. And it's almost like salivating, but that's a bad word. But otherwise, the perfume is so deep with a lot of like apricots, honey, also some like more orange, zesty vibes, and also you have a little hint of more herbiness underneath all that like compact fruit. And I think it's nice to have an orange wine that's easy to drink, but that's not like really super floral as Muscat would have been. This has a lot of power and structure to it. But still, it's very glue as
Yeah, what we wanted to try was a balance between the extraction of the maceration. So you get the color, you get a bit of the tannins, which brings some length as well, and which brings also a natural protection for the wine not to move too much without any addition. And so with the freshness that makes you coming back to your glass. So that was our target. So it's a sharp edge in between those two compounds, because you quickly go on one side or the other one, and so we tried to find the right balance by the length of the maceration and the proportion of each grape variety which is inside.
You've done a great job, I must say. It's Also a very nice wine to drink.
Merci.
But then we have the last of the three, the red wine.
Right.
So this is 100% Pinot Noir.
Exactly. So Pinot Noir is really an interesting grape variety. It's really sensitive to all our actions. So you need to be really delicate while you work with Pinot Noir. And but again, if you do a long maceration in all bunches, you will protect them from many issues from winemaking. And it also brings the structure and the tannins to last longer. So what we wanted to do was again a balance between the freshness of this North grape variety, North geographically, and which brings the freshness, but still something that can match with something strong as a food for food pairing, because there is still only in small yields. The crop are really low, and so that brings the background to have something sustainable and something in your mouth that stays, but with the freshness of the grape variety.
Because you can really feel the freshness in this Pinot Noir with as I like to describe it, as like a crunch, when you feel you have like the fruit together with the sense of stems almost, and the acidity as well. And in this one, very fine tannins. You have a good tannin structure, but it's quite mild. It's round. It has a little small points, but still it feels like it's like a crunching something in your mouth, like you're chewing on something that breaks. It's quite a romantic wine in that.
Cool. Happy to hear those words coming with this wine.
But then we also have a little wild card for the tasting. So a wine from Achillee, and it's your Alors. So it's notable. So it's a fruit pet nut, basically.
Yeah, it's a good way to describe it. It's not easy because it's a product that never existed so far. When we asked the customs how to declare it, they said, okay, we need to create a new category only for this one, because there is no one producing that type of wine, or I don't know how to describe it. So actually, it's a maceration of plums that are called Quetsches, which is a particular variety of plums growing into our region. So we have fruit trees on the side of our wine production, and cherry and plums, and soon some olive trees as well. And so this is really interesting because they have their own issues, and that they help us to understand better the vegetal world, and we give answers to our vine production coming from those other fruit trees. And so we were producing first those fruits for distillery to make some spirits, but we were thinking that it could be fun to do something ourselves with those fruits as well. So we started by doing a wine. So there is 1 week of maceration of those plums. First we crush them by the feet, and then they ferment, and so you get a wine out of those plums. And during the harvest, we put some fresh grape juice on the side that we add to the wine of plums, and we directly bottle it. And so there is a second small fermentation into the bottle that brings the bubbles into the juice or the wine of plums, and so that brings a bit of freshness. So again, our target was not to change the product itself. So we selected some grapes that are from Riesling, from quite young Rieslings, and so it doesn't give a too big impact on the product. And then so you have the plum itself that express itself, and so you can find all the different spices coming from the coming from the plums, mostly cloves and cinnamon. And you have the acidity of the fruit, because those fruits that are planted mostly for distillation, they need big acidity rates, because if you go high into alcohol, for instance, at 42 degrees or percent of alcohol, like we do in our spirits, you need some freshness to be balanced. And here you can really feel this acidity, which is punchy, but it wakes you up, and that's what we have sometimes for breakfast, and for appetizers. Interesting as well. And there is a smoky side coming probably from the stone that is into the plums that helps during the maceration as well. So yeah.
Yes, because it clocks in on only 5.5%
Right.
alcohol volume. It's very easy to drink, and it has that, like you said, that cloves and cinnamon touch to it, but also with that very, very fresh acidity that like cuts through almost anything. So I could imagine like having this to an array of more fatty cheeses and also maybe some charcuteries as well, as a pre-dinner snack, or maybe as something to unwind after a long dinner or just a long day at work. It would be a very nice bottle to open.
We have unfortunately some friends that cannot drink beers. I don't know why they don't like, but that's their issue. And so we also wanted to face this problem for them. And this is an alternative, another opportunity to drink something that we can all share together. And that was exactly what you said about the food pairing is exactly what we advise. And again, there is this smoky side as well, and this salty side that also works with some smoked meat or smoked fishes. And with desserts, it's also interesting, because as you said, for the cheeses, there are some cheeses or some desserts that are quite fat and quite heavy, and that brings something that will just make yourself feeling fresh again.
Yeah, true. It's a different experience, but it's an enjoyable experience. Different in a good way, I would say.
Merci.
Yeah, 'cause it's quite uplifting, and I understand why you could drink it in the morning just to start your day off. It's better than a coffee kick. This one.
Thank you.
So, but then we tried four different wines here today, and all of them has been in bottles. But you don't only make bottles; you do make these big bags as well. For instance, and now they're not visible, but so you make this one as well. So how are your thoughts regarding? Because now when we talked a lot about like your organic farming and biodynamic methods, that's not everything that's in regard when it comes to the environmental aspect of making wines. The packaging is a very big part.
Right.
That as well.
Right. So if you get one of those Flexikeg, that's the name of the bag. If you get it empty, it's less heavy than a bottle, and you can put many bottles into that, and you can reuse them really, really easily. And so it's on tap, and I think I'm really a party animal on the side, and the same for the team and the family. And having something to drink on the tap is always enjoyable. And so it was the combination of those different aspects. So something reusable that is that is not heavy, so really light to transport, and strong enough, and there is no way for the air to come in contact, which was really important for us as well, because it's always natural wines and natural products. So the impact of the oxygen is really harmful for the production. And so by this way, it's a good way to control that there is no other inputs that we couldn't manage. with a light solution, and that is on tap, which is always a bit funnier. So it was a good combination for that. Yeah, that was our targets, and we tested, we tried many different ways to solve those problems, and so far it's the most interesting we found. So it makes us really happy.
Yeah, that's cool because there's a lot of new things coming out, and I'm more seeing a more interest in canned wines, especially here in Sweden as well. So on aluminium cans that are recycled and recyclable. Have you thought of something else, or are you still just doing the bottles and the bigger bags, Flexikegs?
So for some occasions, bottles are more practical, and for some other ones, those bags are more practical. So we don't use cans because it's another process that we don't. We need to learn about it, but I think those two options are interesting. And we also really like magnums, so double size of a bottle, because most of the time we are enough people to taste it on a magnum way. And so I think those two sizes, those three sizes, are the ones that suit the more to our consumption and our customers' consumption as well. And yeah.
Yeah, I understand. Magnum is always nice. Go big or go home, as they say. Thank you so much for all of this, Jan. It's been a very nice talk. I think we're gonna just summarize the four wines in a bit more relatable word use, so words that are more descriptive of the things and people as well, more of an emotional kind of connection to the wines, to find its the essence of the different wines, basically. And I think the white wine, the Blanc Pepin, is quite, it's a happy wine, and it has a little bit of like a bittersweet symphony to quote the verb to it, because it has that the sweetness and the richness of the fruit, but still with that like little bitterness, and then the like acidity that just makes it bubbly and happy, even though it's a flat wine. And then with the orange one, it's a bit more deeper. It's a bit more robust. It's has that like almost like candied feeling, which is quite common now when we turn towards more of the Christmas side of the year. But I think the orange one for me is it's robust, it's fresh, and it has a depth of fruit that's quite hard to explain in words. You kind of have to try it. But robust, deep, and I think flattering as well, because I think it's a wine you try and then you really want to drink more of it. So it flatters you to try more, even though it has this robust center core. And I think it would be perfect for a lot of different kinds of food as well, or just by itself. It's fantastic. And then we have the Rouge, the Pinot Noir. So this is more of a, like I said, for me, quite the romantic one in the bunch. It's a bit more maybe when it comes to the palate. It's more of the more classic, as you might expect Pinot Noir from Alsace to be. It has that really nice crunch. It has that acidity, but also with a lot of like different berries. You have red currant, you have some forest raspberries, you have a little tiny bit of wild strawberries as well. But otherwise, you have that very fine tannin structure, and together with some more herb, not more sage, but something that's a little bit milder, that just gives it a crunch. So romantic, crunchy, very bomb, I would say, about that one. And then the wild card from Achillee, the Quetsches, the plum pet nut with some Riesling. It's just a wild card that's likable, and it has this quite, together with the cloves and the cinnamon and the different other herbs and spices, you feel it gets this almost like artificial. So it's a dreamy thing to drink, because it's ever changing, and it just hits you in different ways every time you try it, and every time you smell it and taste it as well. So an adventurous wine, I would say, for that one. Definitely. But I think that was I've run out of questions, and I think you've answered them and more as well. So if you don't have anything more to add on to, I think we say au revoir.
Okay.
For now.
Thank you for welcoming. And the idea of all that is to build some bridges and between people and between philosophies, and that brings all the diversity, and that's something we want to put in the front of what we are talking every time. And so thank you for welcoming and for all those precise and really correct descriptions, and I really enjoyed all the time. Merci, David. It was a real pleasure.
Thank you so much.
It was really good because you were so precise in your questions, your descriptions, and so it's really great to have all those exchanges. So thank you for this clear, I don't know how to say it in English, but everything has been so clear and fluent, and so thanks. It was really cool talking.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
So bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
See you.